is the WrestleBread Podcast, bringing you the latest news, recaps, and analysis of AEW and WWE. Get the unique perspective from a wrestling fan of over 25 years. Here's your host, Jaydee.
What's going on, guys? This is Jaydee here, and this is episode 29 of the WrestleBread Podcast. So this really wasn't a good week for WWE. It seems like the best nights to watch wrestling now is Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Next week, we're going to have a full-on, 7 days of wrestling. We're going to have Raw on Monday, Tuesday, NWA Power and AEW Dark. Wednesday will be NXT or AEW, whichever one you watch. Thursday will be NXT UK or the NXT replay that they have on Thursdays. Friday will be Friday Night Smackdown. Saturday will be NXT TakeOver War Games. And Sunday will be Survivor Series. And I don't know, I think more likely Raw and Smackdown I'll probably may catch highlights of or just watch a little bit of it. Because this past week or two it really hasn't been that well. I went to Smackdown this past Friday. I had fun while I was there in person, but watching back a little bit of the show, well, of course the show really wasn't good. I say that, but it was much more enjoyable because I was there in person. I brought my son, who is hilarious, and I was sitting around people who I had good conversation with, and I was in a crowd that kind of made things a lot more enjoyable. So to kind of just go over the highlights of this week, I won't go too much into detail of everything that happened on each show. But starting off with Raw, we had the Kabuki Warriors versus Becky Lynch and Charlotte. This was nothing but, continuation of, as my cat's meow, I'm not even going to pay her any mind. This is just a continuation of the setup for Survivor Series of Shayna versus Becky versus Bayley. We have Shayna who shows up and then Bayley goes to attack, but the Kabuki Warriors have won this match. We also had Seth Rollins who had cut a promo putting out an open challenge, and then Imperium shows up, and it was supposed to be Imperium versus Walter. Not Imperium versus Walter. Walter versus Seth Rollins. And then Imperium attacks during the match, which brings out the Street Profits and Kevin Owens of all people. What the heck? Where he's been. And so it led to the Imperium versus Seth Rollins, Street Profits, and KO. One thing that kind of annoyed me with Monday Night Raw this week is that it took place in the UK, and I noticed because it was pre-taped, and you probably saw it all over social media, that WWE heavily edited the crowd. And I also realized that they also do it, it seems like, for the live crowds too, because there was an incident that happened in Philly at Smackdown, and when I went to watch it back, I noticed that we were edited. But I'll get to that later. But during this segment, there was some booing for Seth Rollins, but you couldn't really hear it because the crowd was very much muted. And this also leads to the segment with Lana when she was cutting the promo, and from what I've seen on Twitter, she had a chorus of boos. You could barely hear what she was saying. But unfortunately, on live TV, you couldn't really hear the boos as loudly as you heard on social media. But speaking of Lana, that segment was pretty much terrible. I know there's a lot of advocates for this Lana, Rusev, and Bobby Lashley segment, but I keep wondering, and I did post a question to social media, what is the payoff for this? How is Rusev going to win this storyline? Bobby Lashley already had sex with Lana, as she had said in her promo, that she had sex with Bobby Lashley 7 weeks ago, and it's their sex-iversary. So, and then she lied and said that she was pregnant. But I'm trying to figure out how does Rusev win this? Bobby Lashley already had your wife. Like, even if Lana slaps him and dumps him, Bobby Lashley can still walk around the locker room and say, I had his wife. There's no way to win that. I mean, even if Rusev sits there and kick Bobby Lashley's ass and wins the quote-unquote feud, Bobby Lashley still tapped that. I mean, it's just like, I don't know how a man could win in this scenario. But the segment was pretty dumb. We also had the Viking Raiders, who once again was going against, it wasn't enhancement talent this time, it was a tag team from NXT UK, but it was still a, not really a match that meant anything. I mean, it was a worthless feud, sorry to say, to fans of Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster, but this did nothing for NXT UK. Well, it gave them a bit of exposure on a national television show, but it did nothing for the Viking Raiders. And then also another down was Cedric Alexander versus Andrade. It was a very short match that could have actually turned into a pretty entertaining match. But unfortunately, they weren't given that much time. So moving on to Tuesday, we didn't have an episode of AEW Dark, but we did have an episode of NWA Power, which was actually pretty good. I'm noticing this week, and it's been since it started, but for whatever reason, I'm just noticing it now, is that the wrestlers don't have any entrance music. I mean, granted, there's really no ramp or like anything for them to really walk down. So pretty much like soon as they appear from backstage, within like 3 seconds, they're in the ring anyway. But it's just kind of weird to just have wrestlers appear, or even if like the announcer will do the introductions and then they come out. It's just really weird that they just come out, and the only way you know that they're walking out is by either fan reaction, crowd reaction, or the camera's just panning over there. Kind of weird. But the women's division it's starting to come together. I like Thunder Rosa. I don't remember where I've seen her before, but I've seen her before. But there was a really good tag team match between Thunder Rosa, Marty Bell, and Crystal Rose and Brooklyn Creed. Unfortunately, after the match, they went and cut this promo, and it wasn't really that good. Like, I don't know what to really think of it, but it really wasn't that good. Going to Wednesday, we had Kenny Omega, who wasn't cleared, but Jon Moxley was cleared. And it started out with Jon Moxley versus Nakazawa, who dropped the baby oil. So I'm glad that, he was trying to be taken seriously this time. But of course, Jon Moxley dropped him. Afterwards, Jon Moxley cut a promo, pretty much challenging anyone who had balls to come and face him. We also had Jurassic Express. The Luchasaurus is back, but unfortunately, I think he may be still injured. No, I don't think he's injured anymore, but because I heard a rumor that he wouldn't be back till next year, but it looks like he's all good, fine, and dandy. So hopefully we won't be getting too much more of Marco Stunt. I mean, I admire the courage of Marco Stunt, and he can be funny. I was fine with Marco Stunt when we had the triple tag team. I mean, the three-man tag team matches. But just him and Jungle Boy, you could really see how it's like, it's no bueno at all. So I can't really take too much of Marco Stunt, unfortunately. Then we had Darby Allin versus Peter Peter Avalon and Shawn Spears. Joey Janela attacked Shawn Spears, but we had Darby Allin, who accepted Jon Moxley's challenge, which is a very interesting match that we will be getting next week. We had Nyla Rose versus Danny Jordan, which was pretty much a squash. I guess they're trying to build up Nyla Rose, especially after the fact that she was beaten by Riho very cleanly. We had Ali, who did an interview, and then there were candles flickering on the Titantron. Kong comes out, attacks Ali, and then takes a lock. So I'm guessing that Kong is now collecting hair for her weave belt. Then we had Le Champion, Chris Jericho, cut a promo. Then we had Cody's entrance goes off, and I actually thought it was Cody Rhodes. Because I was sitting there thinking, why does he constantly do this very dramatic entrance? And come to find out it was MJF. So very well played by MJF. And it led to a very good, funny promo by MJF. He explains the reason why he attacked Cody Rhodes. And it's because that he knows the real Cody Rhodes, and Cody Rhodes is nothing but selfish. Kind of makes sense because during all these vignettes of Cody, even Brandy Rhodes said, his attention is on nothing but the title match, or on nothing but this, that, and the third. So you can kind of see how someone will take it as them being selfish, because, Cody's going after, you could say that it's because, Cody going after the title, this, that, and the third type of thing. But it was a very funny promo. And it actually led to Cody coming out. Cody went to try to do a power slam on Chris Jericho, which was an actual botch. But the commentary played it off very well, saying that, Cody is still injured. He don't have his strength, this, that, and the third. He eventually was able to get it off. And then we had Wardlow come out to help out MJF. The guy who we had vignettes of, like 6 months ago. He was the guy that slowly took off his shirt while the guys who were trying to, I guess, rob him or jump him stood there and watched. I'll never forget that promo because it was that vignettes, because I was very confused at the at how good the guys that were trying to jump him were at actually jumping somebody. And then we had Pac versus Hangman, which was very hard-hitting. There was a backstage brawl with the Young Bucks and Santana Ortiz, which I actually liked. The camera kind of like, the commentators kind of like, oh, we got, action going on in the back, and then it kind of turned into chaos. Orange Cassidy was was posing in a bathroom, and I think it was Santana who kind of like slowly closed the door and was kind of like, what the hell is going on here type of face. And then it ended with SCU versus Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. SCU retaining the titles because the Inner Circle had interfered, and then it turned into chaos afterwards. Switching to NXT, we started out with Angel Garza versus Lio Rush for the title. The crowd was very split, but of course it was a very good match. Angel Garza came out as a face. He was, tagging people's hands and high-fiving. Of course, he got the kiss from the grandmom that is a regular there. And he took off his pants in front of Leo's wife, who was ringside. This was a really good match. We had Lio Rush, who did a somersault power slam. Lio Rush won the match, but of course, without controversy. There was some controversy, I should say. Garza's foot was actually on the rope when he got pinned. We had Xia Li versus Aaliyah. Aaliyah got knocked the hell out. Well, not knocked out, but she got kicked in her face. You can see her holding her nose when she got pinned. And I think that Xia and Ali really need a feud. They need to do something, whether it's a fight between them two or separate fights, because the thing with WWE is that everybody needs a feud. There has to be very, very storyline driven. And if they don't know what to do with you, it definitely shows. But next we had Finn Balor, who did an in-ring promo. He talked about, what happened to this place. This place used to be, number one, and now it's nothing but a joke. And he says that the heart of NXT, talking about Johnny Gargano. Then he said, don't get me started on Matt Riddle. Then, of course, Matt Riddle appears, starts to attack Finn Balor. This leads to the Undisputed Era appearing. Then Tommaso Ciampa appears. Then Keith Lee came out. And to continue on the storyline, of course, of Keith Lee, Tommaso Ciampa, and Matt Riddle versus the Undisputed Era for War Games. Keith Lee said, you guys are going to stand there. You're not going to do anything. Get in the ring if you want to fight. They didn't get in the ring. Roderick Strong mentioned, Adam Cole deserves time off, but all this talking, of course, leads to a match between Roderick Strong and Keith Lee. Pretty good match. Fortunately, the Undisputed Era came out to distract Keith Lee, but Riddle and Tommaso Ciampa also came out. Keith Lee won the match, but we also involved Dominik Dijakovic as well, who seems like he is going to be another, probably going to be added on to the War Games team of Keith Lee, Matt Riddle, Tommaso Ciampa. Yeah, Keith Lee, Riddle, and Tommaso Ciampa. I was about to say Undisputed Era for some reason. Then we had Swerve versus Bronson Reed, and I swear they fought each other at least 3 or 4 times now. Not saying that, they don't have good matches together. They do. But I feel like, this should lead to something. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm speaking too soon. But they're fighting each other without really having a reason to kind of fight each other. They shook hands after the match. But I don't know. It's not really leading to anywhere. We had Pete Dunne versus Dillian Kane, but Damian Priest attacked Killian before he even made it to the ring. So it seems like we're leading to a triple threat between these 3. And then we had, for the main event, we had Io Shirai versus Mia Yim in a ladder match. Very hard-hitting ladder match. Io Shirai had landed very awkwardly onto the ladder after Mia Yim gave her a belly-to-belly. It looked like she pretty much missed it, but she hit the edge of the ladder. Then we had a spot where Mia Yim picked up the ladder, and Io Shirai went to do a springboard missile dropkick onto the ladder, but the ladder really hit Mia Yim in the face, and I think it got her right on her nose. I wasn't really quite sure because they really didn't give a pretty good shot of her face, but you can immediately see the blood coming out of her face. They had the camera cut away from her, which I respect. As the medical staff, got to her to kind of stop the bleeding and things like that. They replayed the spot again to show how Mia Yim got hit in the face with the ladder. But they continued on the match. Props to Mia Yim for continuing with that match, because that was a very, very bad, very, very bad injury to her face, especially the way that she started bleeding right afterwards. Dakota Kai came out to check on Mia Yim a bit later on in the match. Then Io Shirai, of course, doing her beautiful moonsault to them onto the outside of the ring. Io Shirai went to climb the ladder, and then Dakota Kai grabbed her, pulled her down, and grabbed Mia Yim for her to climb up the ladder. Then we had Kaylee Ray, who is the women's NXT UK champion, who came out, threw Dakota Kai into the steps, and then as Mia Yim was near the top of the ladder, pushed the ladder over, and Mia Yim fell onto a ladder outside the ring. I'm not sure that she got all of the ladder. It don't look like she got all of the ladder. Of course, with her face was busted open, I'm very shocked that she was able to walk out afterwards from that match. This leads to Io Shirai climbing the ladder and securing the briefcase, and her team, I think, picks out the stipulation for the match at War Games. Very good episode of NXT. AEW was a pretty good episode as well, with the back and forth between MJF and Chris Jericho. Moxley, of course. We had Darby Allin, Sean Spears. Well, it was mainly Darby Allin and Peter Avalon after a while, but I would say this week the best show was definitely NXT. I think I remember seeing the numbers. AEW, of course, still beating NXT. I think AEW is up to 900,000 or very close to it, whereas though NXT is still in the low 8s or high 700s, I think it was. I'm not 100% sure. So, coming to SmackDown, so I decided to go to SmackDown Live. I took my son, who's 10 years old. He hasn't really seen wrestling in a while. His favorite wrestler was John Cena at one point, then it turned into AJ Styles, but he really didn't get into wrestling too much afterwards because, you know, it comes on by the time he has to go to bed. And I have 2 kids, just for the record, boy and a girl. So I took my son with me to SmackDown. And we got pretty good seats. We had the lower level seats. We were able to really clearly see the ring. Of course, we were in the section behind the commentators, so we really didn't get that great of a view of the ramp. If you follow me on Twitter at Jaydee Talks, you'll see some of the videos and the photos I put out. Now, when we got there, there was someone that was sitting in my seat who I kicked out. I was like, "Yo, you in my seat?" And he was like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." Kind of found out they were in a row in front of me, but it was this kid, teenager, I should say. I shouldn't say kid. He probably is like maybe very early 20s, so I guess a young adult. But anyway, he was sitting next to this guy who is a Roman Reigns and a Shinsuke Nakamura fan. So the 3 of us and the Nakamura fan's wife, the 4 of us had a pretty good conversation going here and there during the show. Then I also had my son that was cracking me up as well. So going through SmackDown. Now, seeing the show live and watching on TV is 2 different experiences. As bad as SmackDown was on TV, seeing it live was fine. It was pretty good. Because I had the people around me that we were talking about. I had my son that was cracking me up. And then you hear things in the crowd that doesn't come through on TV. And I watched it back a few times, a few sections of the show, to see if some of the things that we chanted or did came through on TV. And I found out that WWE muted us, especially at this one point. And if you watch back at this one segment during SmackDown, you'll see. Now, we were very, you can hear us clearly because we booed the mess out of Baron Corbin. The crowd really cheered for Roman Reigns. We started off with the segment with Baron Corbin coming out. For some reason, cuts a very long promo. We were booing and stuff like that. At the time, I was kind of like updating my son on what's going on right now in wrestling, so I really didn't pay too much attention to it. But then we had, Baron Corbin calling out Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns' music hits, the crowd pops, and then it was a little dog barking, and then we got this like college mascot type of dog wearing Roman Reigns' vest. Now, I laughed at it at the time because I thought it was like ridiculous. But of course, it's very annoying. It seems like we're leading to, the rumor is, a dog collar match, which apparently was done a very, very long time ago, back in the 80s. I think it was WCW that did it. And from what I read, it seems like a very interesting idea. Now, I didn't see the match, but I read a little bit about the concept. Apparently, there's a chain that's connected to the wrestlers, and the chain is connected to a dog collar, which is around their necks. And it can turn into a pretty brutal match because, of course, you're using the chain to hit each other. It kind of reminds me of the, I forgot the actual term of the match, but it was a strap match or something like that. I remember the one that was done between Savio Vega and I think it was JBL. But back then he was known as Bradshaw. I forgot what the J stand for. No. He was like a cowboy back then. I don't think his name was Bradshaw back then. But he was like pretty much cowboyish. I may be thinking of like a completely different person though. But I remember it was definitely Savio Vega that was part of the match. It was during one of the In Your House pay-per-view matches. And that was not really a brutal match, but they were hitting each other with the strap. And you can't fake that. So this leads to, coming back to SmackDown, this leads to a tag team match between Chad Gable, I refuse to call him Shorty G, Mustafa Ali, who I realize got his first name back now. I guess if you're, being picked up in coverage by mainstream media, that's how you get your first name back. Versus Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. Now the crowd was really into this match. Roman Reigns comes out in the middle of the match. Crowd pops for it. The guy that's sitting next to me is trying to record Roman Reigns while he was out the whole time. And like I said, we were sitting in the section that is kind of behind the commentators. So Roman Reigns was standing on the side near the entrance. So he's like, the guy is trying to zoom in and trying to get Roman Reigns. And he was upset because Roman Reigns he couldn't really pick him up on camera. And his wife was sitting there like, he's right there at the edge. Because he couldn't really, for some reason, see where he was at. But anyway, Chad Gable and Mustafa Ali wins the match. Then we had Braun Strowman versus Drew Gulak. And I popped for Drew Gulak because he's from Philly. And I thought it would be the same thing when he came out. Because I went to Extreme Rules when he was the Cruiserweight champion. And the crowd popped for him. But of course, he was announced as coming from Philadelphia. And I was waiting for them to announce that he's from Philadelphia. So the crowd who didn't know he was from Philadelphia would actually pop for him. But of course they didn't because we're not supposed to pop for him. Then Braun Strowman comes out. And it was a dumb segment. It wasn't even a match out of this. I don't know what they're doing with these two. But it was a pretty dumb segment. And then we had the New Day who appeared backstage. Of course, Big E said something about the Eagles. The crowd goes wild. I'm like, whatever. And then I got to get to hear Big E does his announcement. He did it. I'm very sure he did it at Extreme Rules too. But for whatever reason, I guess because at the time I really wasn't paying attention or whatever, I was very much into his intro at SmackDown. This was a pretty good match of the New Day versus the Revival. The crowd was into both teams, but I think it didn't come through that well on TV. Because we was pretty much all in all enjoying this good match. The Undisputed, now here's the interesting part, and if you have access to like DVR or something like that, because WWE cuts it. Now, or actually it may be on the YouTube. You may be able to see it on the YouTube video. So the Undisputed Era comes out. So we kind of popped for it. And then there was this, of course, you know, the SmackDown locker room empties. We kind of cheer. Now we cheer louder. You hear the crowd cheer louder, but we cheer louder because the Undisputed Era goes into the crowd. And as they're standing in the crowd, we loudly chanted NXT. Now, of course, WWE officials do not want us to chant NXT because this is a SmackDown show. Now, I watched this back to see if it came through, if, you know, WWE had the balls to allow us to chant NXT, and we were muted. You hear like cheering and stuff, but if you look at the YouTube video, you can clearly see the crowd pointing and chanting, and we were chanting NXT, and we got muted for it. So now I know that, you know, WWE messes with the audio whenever it's pre-taped, and I remember back in the Roman Reigns days, they would bring down the sound and sometimes add in sounds. But I didn't know, like, darn, you're gonna really completely take out the NXT chants, because we was pretty loud for it. But then we had Heavy Machinery, who went against Kip Stevens and Kevin Timms. Now, I don't remember them announcing their names to the live crowd. It was kind of an enjoyable match. I mean, it is what it is. Now, the guy that was sitting next to me was in love with Otis. So he had a kick out of the match. Now, during the New Day segment, so here's the funny story, okay? So I told you I took my 10-year-old son, to SmackDown. So I'm sure this is the thing at a lot of arenas across the US, but you're not allowed to bring in outside food to the arena. So before we went down there, we went to McDonald's, got some food and stuff to eat on the train down there. And the way the SEPTA runs, we have the public system that can take you right to the stadiums. All of our stadiums in the same area. Now, there is no food places down there except for like this one like bar type spot called Xfinity Live, which of course have expensive food. Besides that, the only place you could really eat is inside the arena or stadiums. Now, I eat when I go to the Phillies games, because the Phillies games inside the stadium for the Phillies, there's this like food cart for kids, and they have hot dogs for like $4, $3 or something like that. Actually, no, it's like a kid's meal for $4. And always get food from there because it's pretty cheap. But the only time I ever stepped foot in Lincoln Financial Field, where the Eagles play, is when Temple plays there. And I don't eat there because it's pretty much nothing but beer places, which tells you about Eagles fans. Now, if you're an Eagles fan, you're listening, I apologize. Nothing against you, but you know our stadium for the Eagles is nothing but 5 million beer places and probably 3 places to eat. But for the Wells Fargo Center, where the Sixers and WWE goes to, they have some places, but it's not cheap. So my son, I told him, we're going to eat at McDonald's. We're going to take a few snacks. He wanted to eat the snacks, and I had to tell him, no, we can't eat the snacks because we're going to bring it into the arena. He said, well, why can't we bring the McDonald's into the arena? I said, because you're not allowed to. He's like, so we're going to sneak in the food? And I said, yes. So he looks at me because he's a little, he's a good kid. He doesn't really break rules, stuff like that. So he's looking at his mother like, you're about to commit a crime. And I'm like, it's okay. And I told him, I said, this is the one rule that you can break. And I was trying to get him to kind of look at it as, we're not committing the crime, we're saving money. And I kind of, looking back at it is pretty funny because I can only imagine what was going through his head. So I was putting the snacks in my bag and stuff like that. And I had a soda. So as we're walking to the arena, he goes, are we going to get arrested if we get caught? I said, no, we're not going to get arrested. He's like, are they going to ban us for life? And I said, no, they're not going to ban us for life. He was like, okay, good. He said, I don't mind if we get banned from this show. He said, I don't mind if we get kicked out for this show, but I don't want to get banned for life. And so I was like, it's okay. Now I didn't finish the soda I had, so I put it in my back pocket. I attempted to put it in my back pocket, but he kept questioning about how much we could possibly get in trouble if we get caught. He started to make me nervous. And so I'm sitting here like, I'm trying to like find ways to like hide the stuff that we had. Now he had a hoodie on under his coat, so I had him put some stuff in his hoodie pocket. As we're walking to the doors, I'm noticing that they're going, of course, through the women's bags. Nothing against security. I don't want nobody to shoot up the place, but come on, you don't have to do a thorough check. Because I was like, darn, if they find the food, the snacks that I had, they're going to, make us either eat it or we have to throw it away. So I had like maybe a quarter of soda left in my bottle. So I quickly drank most of it and I threw it away. And so we go through and my son's looking at me with this nervous look on his face. And I'm sitting here like, smiling at him, trying to encourage him to act normal and stuff. So we get through security and stuff and he goes, wow, I thought they were going to check my pockets. And I was like, no. I said, I told you, it's fine. So, of course, we get to sit down at the beginning of the show. Oh, and I forgot to mention, when I got there, Cesaro was actually in the match. Because we got to the arena probably like maybe 10 minutes before the show started. And Cesaro was in a match. I forgot who he was going against. Maybe it was actually, it may have been actually Sin Cara or Kalisto. I'm not 100% sure. But Cesaro won the match. And that's the part I caught. I caught the part where he won. And then we went down to our seats. So my son starts eating the snacks right away. And I was trying to space it out for him. So during the New Day match, he goes, and this is how I missed the part where the Undisputed Era comes out. He goes, I'm thirsty. And it's not even 9 o'clock yet. And I'm like, can you hold off for an hour? Because I knew that, whereas though you're watching it at home on TV, you get the commercials and stuff, but it hit me, or we're here live. And so the only time we can really leave is when the lights go down during the entrances, because they'll bring out someone during commercial and then the lights will go down probably for like a minute and then they'll come back up and then it's a match. So I was trying to time it for us to go get something to drink because I knew what was going to happen. I'm going to go get him something to drink and then it's going to turn into wanting food. So Heavy Machinery was wrestling and I was trying to get my son to get into the match because I was like, oh, you may like Otis and this, that, and the third. No, I was like, oh, you're going to like Heavy Machinery. But he's looking like the world is about to explode because he's so thirsty. So the next match that came was Nikki Cross versus Bayley. And in my head, I figured, oh, this could be a lengthy match. I'm not going to, if Shayna Baszler comes out, she'll come out towards the end. That was my thinking. So I got up, and I know it's going to sound bad because technically I got up to get food during a women's match, but I got up. Soon as Nikki Cross came out, we got up to go get some water. Now, another little fact about, being in Philadelphia. So at the arena, and I'm sure this is at all arenas, a bottle of water costs $5. So I was kicking myself in my head because I was sitting there like, I should have grabbed I should have like got something else to drink and actually snuck it in because they don't pat you down. And I could have technically had it in my back pocket and just walked in with it. The thing is, though, and at the arena in Philadelphia, when I ordered the bottle of water, the woman told me, just to let you know, I have to pour it in a cup. And I was like, okay. And my son goes, why does she have to pour it in a cup? And I was like, why do you have to pour in a cup? She was like, oh, so nobody will throw the bottles. And I'm like, darn, I was like, are we that bad that we're going to throw empty bottles of water? Then I'm like, oh, ding, yes. Because we throw full cups of water, of beer, and full cans of beer at athletes and people. So, yeah, of course we can only be served cups of water. So, of course, the cup of water turns to popcorn. And then I went and got some Chicken and Pete's fries. If you've never been to Chicken and Pete's, when you come to Philadelphia, go to Chicken and Pete's. They have something called crab fries. It's the only thing I ever get at the stadiums because I don't live near Chicken and Pete's. And the only way I get Chicken and Pete's fries is down at the stadiums. So the Chicken and Pete's crab fries. It's called crab fries, but it really shouldn't be crab fries because there's no crab in it. It's basically fries with Old Bay seasoning, and they have this cheese sauce with it. That's pretty good. But I always get those when I go to the stadium. It's pretty much the only thing I'm willing to pay, high price for, because it's a luxury for me. So as we're waiting in line, now of course to get the popcorn, it's like the longest line ever. For whatever reason, everybody decided to come together to get in this line to get some food. So, of course, as we're waiting in line, I hear commotion. I hear the crowd inside. And I'm sitting here like, great, I'm missing something. My son goes, do you want me to go see what happened? I'm like, no, don't go see what happened. And, of course, there was these other kids that was by one of the exits. One of them talking about something. Oh, I just saw Brock Lesnar. And I wanted to shout out like, kid, if you don't get out of here, Brock Lesnar's on Raw. But of course, I missed Shayna Baszler coming out. I thought it would happen towards the end of the match. Come to find out, it happened in the early stages of the match. And then NXT ladies come out and attack. And then it turned to a 4v4 match. So by the time we come back out to our seats, I see it's 4v4. And the first person I saw was Mia Yim. And I was like, is that Mia Yim? I'm like, darn, I miss seeing the NXT women come out. And I miss Shayna Baszler coming out. So, I was slightly bummed. And I was talking to the two people that was near me. And I was like, oh, is that, is that Mia Yim? They was like, yeah, you missed it. And they told me what happened. The so-called kid that I keep calling kid is a Shayna Baszler fan. No, he doesn't like Shayna Baszler. And so the guy, the Nakamura fan, no, the Nakamura fan is not a Shayna Baszler fan. And the kid was a Shayna Baszler fan. But I was kind of bummed that I missed that part. But, it is what it is. My son was very happy with his very expensive popcorn and open cup of water. But the SmackDown women won. Of course, they really want to put over the fact that SmackDown is very dominant, I guess. And so we were also chanting NXT when the NXT women went into the crowd, but we weren't as loud with the chant as we were when the men came out. Then we had the main event of Daniel Bryan versus Miz TV. Very good match. Of course, seeing the Firefly Funhouse live was great. I was hoping that the Fiend will come out during Miz TV and attack Daniel Bryan, but it is what it is. Now, we were kind of loud for that segment, but it didn't come across, I guess, on TV that well, but we were kind of loud, especially with the yes chant. But this was a very good callback to when Daniel Bryan joined the Wyatt family. So this match makes a lot more sense than it did when it was Bray Wyatt versus Seth Rollins. And the crowd, we were chanting yes along with Bray Wyatt. And then, of course, he started to start chanting yes in a very crazy way, I guess I should say. Like, he was he started chanting yes in a very angry and psychotic type way. And so I was like, whoa, he's taking it to a level 9, where I'm sitting here trying to chant yes on a level 3. But yeah, and that's how the segment ended. Now, I heard that people were kind of upset at 205 Live. So this is the first time that I attended Smackdown in a very long time. And so there were people who were kind of upset at how the crowd was during 205 Live. And the reason was, so during the show, one of the announcers announced that the main event will be Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns. So I thought oh, okay. They really didn't, show a graphic or anything during SmackDown. So it could have been that maybe, it was shown at home or something like that, and we just missed it. So after the Daniel Bryan segment, I was expecting, it's gonna be this main event of Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns. So as soon as the segment ended, Daniel Bryan goes into the back, and The Miz kind of plays it up to the crowd and stuff like that. The guys come out and start getting rid of the ring accessories that was there for Miz TV, and then on the screen it immediately starts showing 205 Live. So me and the Roman Reigns fans, we were kind of confused because we was like, where's Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns? And then it hit me that they're going to do this whole 205 Live taping, and then after that it was going to be Roman Reigns versus Baron Corbin, which I wasn't staying for. So I wanted to see Angel Garza live, which I did. He was actually the first match of 205 Live. It was Angel Garza versus Jack Gallagher. And the crowd wasn't into it because, first of all, half the crowd was confused because we thought that we were going to get Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns, which, everybody in the crowd, as you heard on TV, was really cheering loud for. They were cheering loud for Roman Reigns. And then the other half of the crowd was leaving. So, probably didn't, I don't know if you saw it on 205 Live. I didn't watch 205 Live. I don't watch 205 Live. I heard that I should watch 205 Live, but I don't have time to watch 205 Live. But I get to see the 205 Live wrestlers on NXT. And I'm a fan of Angel Garza, so I was happy to see him live. But after, not really that good of a show, the crowd was kind of defeated anyway. I mean, you can clearly hear from the start of the show versus towards the end. I mean, the crowd was kind of defeated. It was 10 o'clock. We were all confused because we thought we were going to get Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns. I didn't even look up on social media if the match actually happened or not. But very funny. My son got a kick out of the Roman Reigns theme by Baron Corbin. So of course, when Roman Reigns music hit during that match, he started doing the little bark along with the music, and everyone around us started cracking up about it. So I'm sure I read that a lot of people at home was very upset about it. And I completely understand. This whole thing, I mean, I guess people need to really stop having high expectations of WWE. WWE has shown us that we really shouldn't have high expectations. So people get all worked up about it. I mean, I read people, putting middle fingers to the screen, watching it, saying, oh, I shut it off after this, that, and the third. And it's WWE has shown us for years what they think of us. they're going to do whatever they want. They're going to, we have the creative team who has the thinking of, not really the creative team, but the creative process is of that of like a 6-year-old, truthfully. I'm very happy that the Dan Bryan versus Bray Wyatt segment went as good as it did. I would have expected it would turn left. I'm still I'm not like as hype still right now about it as I was when it was first announced. But I don't have high expectations of WWE. So I don't get as upset as a lot of people I see on social media does. And that's because I don't have high expectations of it. WWE has shown me time and time again that all they're going to do is pretty much upset me if I come into things with expectations. Now, of course, I had high expectations of the Hell in a Cell match, and I was upset about it at the time, but then I realized, no, they have shown, and they gave hints that that match was going to end in a screwy type finish. But yeah, they're not doing that well. And for what I heard, it may be a rumor, it may not be. Fox really wasn't happy with the Roman Reigns segment. I don't know how true this rumor is, but I'm very sure with Fox now having their hands on SmackDown, they want SmackDown to do very well. So I'm very sure if the ratings start dropping, Fox will be like, hey, you need to get this in order, and things will change then. But I realize that SmackDown, unfortunately, is the new Raw. But I say we'll see what happens in a year's time. If it continues to do as bad as it's starting to do, I think Fox will step in. So this is where my expectations come in. I have the expectation that SmackDown will not get as bad as Raw can get. I think because Fox is promoting it with NFL, Fox has a very high expectation of what they want out of WWE. So let me get into some bit of news. There was a lot on WWE side versus AEW side. Sin Cara has asked for his release along with Oney Larkin. Very unsure if either of them will get their releases. Them along with Luke Harper and Mike Kanellis have asked for their release via social media. I don't think WWE is going to honor all of theirs. There's some rumor that they may be more lenient of releasing people. I highly doubt it, because there's now not only AEW, but there's other promotions as well. And plus, WWE has shown that they could be very petty. Look what they did with Luke Harper. They added time to his contract. So, not really expecting to read about either one of these four really being let go of their contract. I believe Sin Cara recently signed a new contract, so I really don't think they're going to let him go. Luke Harper, they're more likely may let go because he's getting closer to the end of his contract. I'm not quite sure of Oney Larkin, if he's close with his contract. I read that he actually asked for his release last month. So since it's been a month, I don't think he's going to be let go. Another piece of news, ACH, aka Jordan Myles, has announced on Twitter that he quit WWE. The way he quote unquote quit WWE, I'm very questionable about. So he posted a video on social media, him in a car, it looks like, and he said, as of today, I'd like to officially announce, FNWE, I am no longer employed. I refuse to work for racists. I fucking quit. Fuck them. I hate that fucking company and everything they fucking stand for. All they ever did was hold our fucking people back. I do this shit for the culture. I don't need anyone's fucking permission to do what I want to do. Screw Jordan Myles. Don't ever call me by that slave name. call me ACH and don't forget the super bitch. I quit. Fuck you. And then he put middle finger to the screen. And I'm really starting to, not to be funny, but in all seriousness, I'm really starting to question if this may be like a possible like mental health issue with Jordan Myles. Because it's a way to go about things, and the way not to go about things is to do this all through social media. Not that burning bridges, not that he's ever may go back to WWE, but you're putting this out there for other promotions to see. And I guess like maybe he'll go with Master P with I think it was House of Glory that he now owns. But you don't want to do this all over social media. And I was kind of on his side as far as the t-shirt thing, even though they're claiming that his story started to change. But once he started calling out Jay Lethal and Booker T and was still claiming that, he doesn't work with racists and he's doing this for the culture. Once you start putting your own people down, our own people down, that's when I kind of jump off the wagon. I really wasn't too much on the wagon, but that's when I completely, you lose all credibility with me. And the way he's going about this as far as quitting WWE, now WWE may let him go because of how crazy this situation has gotten. Or they may be who they are and keep him under contract. He is under contract. I don't know how long he's signed for, but hopefully it's for a year. Because I believe he was signed back in February, or maybe actually around this time. So I'm hoping for his sake and for WWE's sake that he will be let go and he'll be able to do whatever it is he want to do. But I really am starting to feel like this could be like a mental health issue of someone who is being unstable. Not saying that like he belongs in a mental hospital or something like that, but like someone needs to like talk to him and let him know like everything is going to be okay type of thing. In other news, of course, one of the biggest pieces of news this week is that CM Punk is back with WWE. And I know a lot of people is like, oh no, he's working with Fox. He's working with Fox. It's Fox money. He's not with WWE. He's with Fox. No, he is with WWE. The show is called WWE Backstage. It's not a wrestling show. You're not going to catch anyone from AEW on there. They're not going to talk about what's going on in Ring of Honor. They're not going to mention what's going on in NWA Power. This is all about WWE. Yeah, they may bring people, athletes from outside of wrestling, but they're not going to talk about other type of wrestling. So yes, he is back with WWE. I don't care what anyone says that it's a Fox thing. It's a WWE show. They're not going to talk about AEW or any other promotion on there. It's WWE. He's back with WWE. Okay. It's only a matter of time before he does things possibly in ring or backstage with WWE. All I know, and my only opinion about CM Punk coming back, is if he turns around and starts complaining about WWE doing this, that, and the third, no, you can't do that. WWE has already shown you from the last time you were there of how they can be. He was injured. The way they treated him, he got fired on his wedding day, this, that, and the third, as far as lawsuits, everything like that. And the way he was pretty much like, not blacklisted, but everybody would chant CM Punk as a way to like, quote unquote, get back at WWE. I don't want to hear any complaints from him ever again if something happens that he doesn't like as far as WWE. Because WWE has done this to you before. So if they do something against you again and you don't like it, tough luck. That's on you. Okay? And for all the people who sat there and chanted CM Punk and was on his train and FWE and all this other stuff, now they're calling him a sellout. And it's like, first of all, come on. Ultimate Warrior came back Bret Hart, of all people, came back. If Bret Hart can come back to WWE after what they did to him, I see, like, anybody can come back, truthfully. Eventually, they're going to put Chyna by herself in the Hall of Fame. It's a matter of when versus if. Time does heal things. And all I'm going to say is, while there may be forgiveness, do not forget. And I don't want to hear CM Punk complain if WWE shows their colors to him again. That's all I'm saying. And I don't want to hear anybody jumping on this bandwagon if it happens as well. Last piece of news is that Randy Orton has re-signed with WWE, and he revealed it in the most amazing way on Instagram. Randy Orton on social media is hilarious. I'm sure everyone heard about him streaming live, playing video games, talking about AEW and how he wants to work with Sammy Guevara. And then him using the N-word as well, too. This time around. And then he even, like, pointed out Elite on something and then tagged Chris Jericho on it. This was all to get WWE, like, nervous, of course, which I kind of figured. I figured either he was going to leave the company to be with Cody, or he's using this as bait to get the big money from WWE. It seems like he chose the latter. He has enough money now to get his own chartered plane. Cause he mentioned whenever there is, travel delays, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. And apparently he has his own private charter. And then he said, whenever there's, whenever there's travel delays, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. And then he goes, did I mention I re-signed with WWE? And he's like, ching ching. And I said, you do you, guy. You do you, dude. So you do you, guys. So he got the big bucks. He got exactly what he wanted. He has enough money to have his own private plane. And then, of course, he got home in time to celebrate his 4th wedding anniversary with his wife. And he posted videos and photos of that too. The video was pretty funny of him with his wife eating dinner. But yeah, Randy Orton's getting them big bucks, and he re-signed for 5 years apparently. I don't think there is any word out of how much he signed for, but dollar bills, y'all. But I'm happy for Randy Orton. He got exactly what he wanted, got what he deserved, and now he can continue giving 0 Fs on social media. So that's it for the WrestleBread podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Shout out to Julian and Rob Bass from the Wrestling Court podcast on AlternativeMinds.com. Keita and Jay from the Keita and Jay Show. Chris from We Talk Next podcast. Nando and Larry from Half K podcast. And Devin and Hafiz from Clark Street Wrestling podcast. Coming up next week, I'm going to be giving my predictions for War Games and for Survivor Series. Good luck to everyone out there who is going to be watching, 7 days worth of wrestling, especially those who watch like Ring of Honor, New Japan, all that stuff too. Good luck to us. We're going to be putting in, 18 hours, I think someone calculated, of wrestling. I'm more likely going to have to just catch like highlights of Raw and SmackDown, really. I don't think I can really sit down and watch those 5 hours of wrestling. So, but, kudos to you if you decide to sit down and watch 18 plus hours of wrestling. Be sure to hop on Twitter and follow me at Jaydee Talks. That's JAYDEE Talks. And be sure to follow the podcast at WrestleBread. Let me know your thoughts of what happened this past week, of how you feel about CM Punk. I'm sure everybody's going to tune in to WWE Backstage now that CM Punk is on there. The week before he popped up, it only did 46,000 views, and we'll see how much it'll do next week. Maybe it'll do a million views because now CM Punk is on there. I hope all those people that called him a sellout will not tune in. That's all I can say about that. Let me know your thoughts of everything. Until next time, guys. Peace.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Check us out at WrestleBread.com and subscribe to WrestleBread on YouTube for more breaking news and JD's opinions.